I'm free.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
From like misery, from suffering, from generalized malaise.
Let's not get too ambitious here.
Okay.
I am free of my jury service, though. It has completed unexpectedly a little bit sooner than was planned.
Oh, thank you for your. Did the case end like unexpected? Did they settle? Was there like
no? We saw the whole thing through. The whole process played out. But
did you go to a deliberation room?
We did, which was like in the bowels of the building. Like
really,
dude, it was kind of crazy. You have to because the courthouse is pretty publicly accessible. Like you have to go through metal detectors and stuff, but like. They don't check IDs or anything. Anybody can just come and go. And in fact, I think unless it's a closed courtroom, anybody can just sit in the gallery and watch a trial, I think.
Yeah, you can go. In fact, actually, I should do that with my daughter next year and take her for a field trip to watch a trial sometime.
Yeah, like I kind of thought that like sounds really weird because I just got out of it and I'm like, oh, I've got my free time back. But I kind of now I've got a bit of an itch to maybe go sit in on another trial just to watch the process play out again a little bit. But
so everything I know about this, I learned from watching TV shows. I assume that there was like opening arguments that were heartfelt and impassioned from both lawyers. And then there was some testimony.
Mm-hmm. A lot of it.
Did you go on any field? Like I like my favorite part of Perry Mason's was when they would take a field trip to see the scene of the crime.
No field trip. There was one reenactment in the courtroom though.
Ooh.
Anyway, the deliberation room, though, I was going to say the courtrooms are fairly, like I said, publicly accessible. But the deliberation area is like deep in the bowels of that courthouse building. Like you have to badge in, like there's this like labyrinthine. No. Like the bailiff, the bailiff has to badge into this big heavy door and like go through these labyrinthine halls into like these back rooms that are like way out of sight.
Wow, like Stanley Parable business.
Once they put you in there to deliberate, you can't leave without calling the bailiff again. You're not like allowed to go out the door.
What if somebody needs to pee?
There's a bathroom in each deliberation room.
Oh, that's convenient.
Yeah, and a water
Does everybody
cooler.
have to like stop talking while you go in and pee though?
Yep. But
really?
They stressed very strongly you have to stop deliberating or talking about the case if somebody goes in the bathroom.
Wow.
Yes.
Did they give you sandwiches?
Nope.
What?
No, you have to provide all of your own food. You can bring food into the deliberation room though.
Did we like if you bring snacks, you better bring enough for everybody situation, you think? Or was it like there
was no eating in there. We actually like they turned us loose to deliberate like 45 minutes past lunchtime.
Okay.
It was like 12:45 when they actually had to like get permission to like the judge stopped everything when we hit noon. We were so close. We were basically like at the end of everything.
Yeah.
And the judge actually like stopped for a couple minutes and came back and he was like, all right, I think he used the word permission. It was something along those lines. He effectively said, I've gotten permission to run into the noon hour because basically it's like a mandated lunch break, right?
Oh, right. Because there's people that are union employees, right?
I assume. I don't know about like the attorneys and judges, I'm sure like people like bailiffs and
court reporters probably are, right?
Clerks and stuff like that probably are unionized. Anyway, the point is we were so close to wrapping everything up and getting deliberation started that he made special concessions to go past noon. So by the time it was like 12:45 when they were like, all right, let's go to the deliberation room. And as soon as we got in there, like everybody was like, what about lunch? Because they were like, the bailiff was like telling us how to deliberate and everybody was like, we need to eat before we do this.
Yeah. So
we had to break for lunch because everybody had to go get food.
Okay.
So the point is like we all just went and ate and did not bring the food into the deliberation room.
Okay. So then, so you're in the deliberation room and like, what's the scene? Is it like 12 Angry Men? Is this like people
angry.
yelling and stuff?
No, it was quite, everyone was aligned enough that it really was actually quite cordial and orderly and just sort of got done quite quickly.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Yeah. I think we're like Vinny's like dying to hear about every detail of this thing. So I think the Ramblecast on Nextlander this week for people who are patrons there will probably be like bursting at the seams with more details like this. But
okay. But you got to give me the exciting conclusion though. Like, guilty, innocent. Did you send somebody up the river?
I don't think it's in the media yet. It was a civil trial. This was not criminal.
Oh, okay,
you know what? I'm going to tell you, like, I felt enough responsibility even in the civil trial making this decision that I don't know if I'd want to do a criminal trial.
No, I think a criminal trial would cause me an incredible amount of anxiety.
Yeah. Like I have heard from people on criminal juries since I've talked about this publicly who have reached out, like who in one case said they sent somebody to jail for 50 years, prison for 50 years.
Yeah, Gina was in the selection pool and was like seated, but they hadn't gotten through all the vetoes and stuff yet, and they finally kicked her off at the end because they got somebody better, close enough that they could like put them in her seat, basically.
Oh, you mean voir dire?
Yeah, exactly. And she was like legit concerned that because it was like a federal criminal case and it was going to be like an incredibly long time commitment.
Yeah.
And like I said, the person was going to, the stakes were the person was going to go away for the rest of their life if it didn't go well.
I mean, that's like probably legitimate. Like that's probably dismissal for cause, honestly, if you are very honest that like, hey, I don't think I can fairly adjudicate this thing because
because my own personal anxiety is such that I can't. Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't know that I can send if you were to say I don't have it in me to send somebody to prison for life, they absolutely would excuse you on the spot.
Yeah. I think that's like in my case, that's a true statement. I would have I mean, there are some things that I would definitely be able to send people to prison for life for, but it would be a moral challenge for me.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Anyway. Well, congratulations. Thank you for your service.
Yes. I'm happy to have completed this thing, seen it through. And now
you're immune for like 5 years, right?
Technically it's 12 months.
You give a month, you get 11. That's a bad deal.
Yeah. So it ended up being about 3 weeks, actually. It was, okay. I assume they said May 30th, which is a week from yesterday at the time of this recording is when it would end, or it was like the longest it would be. I assume they just plan out for it to be the absolute maximal version of what they mapped out. Just so people don't, people need to make concessions in their personal lives for it to be that long if necessary, but it turned out to be faster.
Well, and like they excuse you if you have like a vacation planned or something. So if they had said it was going to go after that and somebody had a vacation for June 2nd, they don't want to have to kick jurors out.
So they don't actually excusing you means you are free, you've completed your service and are not in the pool for another 12 months. Mm-hmm. Deferring means if you have travel, they defer you, which means you have to put down a makeup date and they will send you another summons within the next like 3 months.
Yeah, it's always the Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. That's the one I do. That's a banger.
Yes. So you can't, sadly, you can't just get out of it if you have travel booked. You have to make it up. But
what if you don't believe in the rule of law anymore?
That's probably a good reason to remove you as a potential juror.
Yeah, extreme corruption in the United States government has led me to believe. Anyway,
yeah. Before we start, I want to say there's like one telltale sign of the effect this schedule has had on my life. I just happened to glance at my downloads folder.
Yeah,
there's nothing in it for the last.
It's empty.
It's complete. I haven't downloaded anything in 3 weeks.
How do you live like this, Brad?
The entirety of my use of this computer has been somewhere between like 5:30 and 7 a.m. every day now. Just I had to be there at 9 o'clock every day. So like, and by the time I would get home, it was like after 6, and I was just like, I don't want to go sit on the computer anymore after this.
This is the closest you've had to a straight job since probably before the pandemic, right?
Or like a 9 to 5, have to be in a place type of job. Yeah. So I mean, I was working at home 1 day a week because we were not in session on Wednesdays, but still, like just looking, it was like, man, I really have not been in my normal routine at all.
Wow.
But now I'm back, and hey, you want to do a podcast?
Yeah, and get that download folder filled up too, Brad. Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad.
How's Sheaf Quest going?
Sheaf Quests. I haven't quite maxed out the battle pass, but I've got everything I care about. I've got General Grievous. You
got Red Road Sheev?
I take that back. I do not have Red Road's Palpatine.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't use the word sheev.
Look, I've been rolling I rolled with a squad full of sheaves last night.
I just cannot use the word sheev. I'm sorry.
And I'm gonna say when you have a swarm of sheaves descend upon you, first off, we were playing with my friend Mike, and we were playing with his nephew who's 6 years old, which probably we had some deleterious effects on his MMR, would be my guess, because we went from playing like all bot games and small children games to kind of getting wrecked to pushing through a dub for him. The rolling with the full squad of sheaves swarming down on people and blasting lightning and rocks at them and all that was some good chaos that the children just didn't know how to cope with.
I always like to think that Palpatine was mononymic, that he just has the one name, kind of like Cher.
I mean, I think that's
Madonna.
Sidious. Is if you're going to go one name, it's Sidious, right?
I always thought, yeah, sure.
Sheev is what his bros call him.
Yes. I actually weirdly, once I got him and started using him, I don't know if he's actually like the best model in the game because the robe like clips outside of the TIE fighter and he's kind of bland looking. He's just kind of a dark gray lump.
The best one is the banana that the head pokes out of all the cars through the roof.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But the hitbox is bad on that one.
Yes.
So we don't want to use that if you're competitive.
Yeah, but I got, I guess that red robe one will have a little more pizzazz to it, but I got General Grievous, which is maybe the real prize.
General Grievous is pretty good.
Yeah.
He doesn't have enough arms though. He needs more arms.
Mm-hmm.
Fortnite's good. That's
fun.
Yeah.
Fun. I don't know if I'll probably take a break after the Star Wars stuff is over, but
probably, I mean, look, there's a giant Death Star in the sky. I think we speculated about this. I assume that the Death Star means the end of the Star Wars season is the end of this iteration of the map, and they're going to blow everything up and start with a clean map on June 8th or whatever.
Do you think that the Death Star is to scale? There's been numerous times that I've stopped in the middle of a match and just kind of looked up at the skybox and wondered at obviously, you don't know how close it is to the planet or whatever weird plane of existence Fortnite takes place on, but I like to look up at it and be like, man, is that really what it would look like if it loomed over your planet? That's scary as fuck.
This is always where do they park the Death Star when they're not using it? What's the storage plan for the Death Star? Because if you roll in with the Death Star around my planet, I'm going to freak out. Even if I think we're cool with the Empire, you never know, man. They might blow you up.
What is the means of propulsion of that thing? I've always wondered. What does it look like going into hyperspace? That's always been my question.
Yeah, right. Does it leave a wake that sucks everything into hyperspace with it? I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep. We're not qualified to answer those questions, but
wow, that is a good segue. Yeah. If you have questions, you can send them to us at techpod@content.town. Again, that's techpod@content.town. I definitely didn't say podcast there because that would be a weird thing to say. Or if you're in the Discord, if you're a member of the Patreon and you want to submit a question via the Discord where you type a question into a channel and then it just disappears in front of your eyes, you can post it in the question seeking answers channel. And we have a mighty crop of questions this month. So if we didn't get to your questions, apologies in advance. I think we probably have enough to do a whole patron episode of questions too. Next week sometime. There's a lot of questions right now.
Yes, man, it just hit me. It's going to be so much easier to work that Patreon episode in now that I'm actually going to be here all next week.
Yeah, you have time to play Doom the Dark Age again now. You can catch up on blueprints.
Everything has just been kind of on hold for the last 3 weeks. But anyway.
Yeah. Hey, you got your life back, man. And no more courthouse tuna sandwiches. So you got that going for you.
I brown bagged it. I was pretty proud of myself.
That's pretty good.
I did not buy. I bought a croissant the day I got selected because I was hoping that I would get dismissed immediately and did not.
Yeah.
But after that, I was very disciplined and made lunch every day and
that's good.
Had a little freezer pack and everything. It was kind of cool.
What's your lunch strategy for the courthouse? What do you take?
It was a lot of leftovers. It was a lot of pasta or. I was making wraps on the days we didn't have leftover spring. I was making little turkey wrap and a hummus wrap.
Love a turkey hummus wrap.
Yeah.
Very healthy.
Yes.
And garbanzos.
Mm-hmm. Always good. All right. How about we start with an anonymous email?
Oh, I like an anonymous one.
For reasons that will become clear, please redact my name. When
done.
Will was done. When Will was suggesting ideas for a portable pirate radio station, this was nearly what my mates and I did in college.
Ooh.
This was the dawn of MP3, and one of our mates bought from somewhere a 5-watt FM radio transmitter. This had about a 5 or 10 mile radius, so here's what we did. We placed the antenna off campus on a TV antenna at his parents' house, connected to a computer running Winamp. This is brilliant, by the way.
This is really good.
This email blew my mind, kind of. This was the days of analog TV signals as well. Each Friday, the three of us would each record a 2-hour show, burn it to MP3, then broadcast. That way, whatever party we would show up at, we could tune to our station on the radio and listen to our music.
This is incredible.
By that time, the people at the party were too far into the evening to notice the change in songs. And that's it.
That's incredible. So,
brilliant. I said.
Did you have friends in college that worked at the college radio station?
No, my sister actually worked at the radio station at her university, but I was graduated and gone by then.
So Tatum, who we worked with at Whiskey, worked at his college radio station when we were in college. And It was knowing somebody who worked on the radio station. I had another friend who was there at the same time, and you'd call him and ask him to like play shit for you at specific times.
Sure.
But this is even better because then you have your own DJ show. You can do the whole thing. It's incredible.
It's really impressive. Like that's just a feat of ingenuity. I also just have kind of a fascination with, we talked about this.
Also a federal crime. Let's be clear.
Yes, we should probably. That's exactly why this person redacted their name.
Yeah.
But we talked about this a week or two ago. Like I kind of just love the union of new and old tech and like piping like modern digital data through an old analog signal.
Yep.
I think we've talked about on the Q&A before, somebody that made a TV station in their house. I think in their case it was like 24/7 Simpsons reruns or something. But
they use the old cable that's in the wall, right?
Right. So they could plug into the coax in the wall and tune to channel 13 or whatever they had put it on and just watch Simpsons. And like that piping from a computer over an old analog broadcast method like this is just super cool.
Well, so we had a mystery pile of feces in our backyard the other day.
Okay.
Like a pretty mighty one, fairly substantial. Scat is what I would call this probably.
Oh, okay.
And
what's the difference?
I don't know. So I think spore. I don't know. I assume spore is herbivores and scat is carnivores. Maybe
spore is more generic. Spore is a track, trail, scent, or dropping, especially of a wild animal.
Scat is a poo.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a good 3-pound crap, and it looked like carnivore crap. And like we live in mountain lion area here.
Oh yeah, jeez.
And we kind of freaked out. So I sent it to the Puma tracking project for the peninsula, which is like these volunteers who track sightings and post them on a map. And they were like, that's not mountain lion. We were like, woohoo, that's good news. Probably a coyote got in our backyard somehow.
That's not great either.
I don't mind. Single coyotes, no problem. Single mountain lion, real scary.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, but a pack, generally when there's one coyote, there's more, right? And a pack of coyotes is a problem.
Well, it turns out this time of year is when the young male coyotes, the cubs, get kicked out of their packs.
Oh.
So, because they're usually females and there's one alpha male and then the young males. So the new young males are finding their way this time of year. So it's probably a stupid teenage boy that got stuck in our backyard.
Okay.
Is the kind of TLDR.
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah. Coyotes are nothing to mess with, though. I have heard some grim stories from back home in the more rural areas about the work of coyotes.
Yeah. Especially if you're like walking a small dog or something. It's not good.
My parents, like good medium sized dog almost got by coyotes.
Oh, well, so I bring it up because I was looking to see if you can use like software defined radios to track mountain lion collars because they're all tagged around here.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah. And it turns out you can't because the collars are designed to last for like 4 years. They don't because the tranquilizing and tagging is fairly traumatic for the animal. So they try to minimize it as much as possible. So they broadcast really low wattage signals at a really long interval. So it's like every 3 hours or something. And your chance of picking up those, if you don't know what you're looking for, your chance of picking that up out of the noise is very low.
Okay.
So anyway.
Do they not collect and aggregate and make available the data themselves?
They don't make it available because of poachers.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. Because it would be really nice to know if the mountain lion is in my neighborhood before I go out in the backyard.
Yeah, it sure would.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Question from Alexander. Between all the stuff you guys do you keep track of your work and projects in a work log? Ever since I saw John Carmack's explanation of his work log, I've been trying to implement one myself, even developing an app for it, but I get too lazy with it eventually.
I keep everything in a Notion database at this point.
Okay.
Like I have really, like the way Notion works is you can kind of generate, it works almost like a wiki where you can generate pages off of pages and stuff like that. And I've always had wiki envy over the years. So,
sure. Yeah, I've heard.
So I have like top level stuff for top level categories for like games consulting and PC World and the podcast and the newsletter and like games I'm working on and other stuff I've been writing. And then I put subcategories of all of that. And I also have I have a home lab category. So I have that's where I put the documentation for how to install Docker containers and stuff like that I use on my servers. And it ends up being incredibly useful. I've tried this 20 times in the past, and this is the first time I've been really consistent and good about it, but Also, it was a necessity because there's enough stuff going on that if I don't actually keep good notes, that I won't remember what I did 3 days ago.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I'm bouncing back and forth, like going back and forth from games consulting to PC World stuff is like it's a lot sometimes.
Yeah. I feel like I'm kind of getting the vibe from reading comments out there that the enshittification might be setting in on Notion a bit.
So I still am using the free Notion. They don't seem to have hit the Evernote problem where they're like, hey, you can only use this on 2 things unless you pay us. But they are doing some stuff with the Notion paid now where like they used to have a base tier and then there was the tier you could pay for their terrible fucking AI.
Yeah, it's mostly complaints about the AI features getting shoved in more prominently.
Yeah, now they've gotten rid of the cheap tier and they force you to get the AI tier if you want to have Notion paid, which like for single person, Notion free is great. The paid features are all around sharing, like having shared workspaces with other people and stuff like that.
Yeah, I still get the vibe that Obsidian is the thing most people switch to if they're not on.
I find Obsidian to be completely inscrutable.
Okay.
The other thing I've been looking at is DocuWiki. DocuWiki, which is a somebody in the Discord recommended it the other day. It's just it's like a viewer that you run on a server, and it takes a folder full of markdown files and makes a wiki out of it, which seems like it seems like then you could use something like Simple Note or something like that to generate your wiki folder and then view it online with this DocuWiki thing, which seems pretty good.
That's cool. Speaking of Simple Note, my answer to this question is that the best I manage here is a flat to-do list in a Simple Note document, which I rarely even look at, let alone update.
Yeah, so you don't do this at all then? I'm
bad. I'm a bad note taker / I mostly just keep things in my head, which is of varying degrees of effectiveness.
Yeah, the thing that happened to me is when I got busy, like I was actually around the time we started this podcast and I was still doing the foo stuff and then transitioning into the game things where I had a million tasks at any given moment and I had to keep track of them. It became really clear that I had to have more consistent note taking. Yeah. When I was just working on Tested, we had a giant whiteboard with all of the scheduled shoots and upcoming stuff that was in production and like status of that.
Yeah.
And that was our kind of tracking system for that because we were all in the same office all the time. So it worked really well.
Sure. Question from Levi regarding Apple TV boxes or other non-Apple streaming TV type boxes as well, and concerns about using an HDMI port on them. What about using the PS5 or Xbox to stream services? I too have a Hisense TV and I avoid the smart functions except for Apple casting to the TV, which isn't used often. Yeah, that is worth mentioning. I mean, at least for me, obviously, if you don't have one of those consoles, not an option, but I've got both plugged in already. There's a couple things there. I don't think the PS5 supports Dolby Vision, if I'm not mistaken.
Does it not? Really?
I'm pretty sure it does not. I would have to triple check that, but I mentally filed it away along with Samsung TVs on my list of things that don't support Dolby Vision. For however much you care about that, it's some people probably care more than others. That's just kind of slightly better HDR. The other thing about this though is that I use Plex and Jellyfin quite a bit these days, and those apps I have found to not be the best on the consoles, or at least not to not get updated quite as often as some of the others. Like in both of those cases, I found Jellyfin and Plex apps to be of like extremely varying quality depending on the platform. Like I'm guessing the Apple TV ones are probably consistently the best. I should check again. It's been a while since I looked, but like for the commercial services though, that is absolutely more of a viable option because I've had generally a pretty good experience with stuff like Amazon and trying to think what else have I tried on console. It's definitely done Amazon and Netflix on there, maybe Disney Plus as well at some points. Like the commercial ones generally, I think, are pretty good on the consoles.
It's funny because for me, there's a couple of things. One is the remote situation on the consoles is annoying.
Sure. Yes, like having to use a controller to manage all that stuff is not great. I have an old media remote for the Xbox, which works, but it's not amazing either.
Yeah, and like compared to, I mean, the way my wife and I interact with the TV is just with the remote app built into the phone, right? Because we use the Apple TV. The other thing is I used to not use the consoles for this because the noise was bad, especially last generation and the one before.
Yeah.
The consoles were pretty loud. The newer consoles are that's less of a problem. I feel like there's probably, I actually should test this. It would be easy for me to set up and test, but I wonder what the power draw is for the consoles versus like a dedicated Apple TV or something like that that's running ARM.
That's another thing I've thought about, is that you're burning, I would guess somewhere between like 15 and 30 watts, maybe 30 watts on an Xbox when you're watching stuff.
Idle.
I don't know.
I mean, that's essentially idle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
minus whatever like video decode hardware is active and networking.
Okay. So the PlayStation 5's legal site has active power consumption data, which I assume is probably right. At Blu-ray playback is 55.7 watts and streaming media is 56.1 watts.
Wow, that's way
for
more
the
than
PlayStation. That is crazy high. That's for HD.
That's running a disc though, did you say?
Well, Blu-ray playback is 55.7 and streaming media is 56.1.
Oh, wild. I would have thought
HD.
I would have thought the disc would have been way higher due to having to run the motor in the disc drive.
I think those motors are pretty, like, it's like, while they spin fast, they're pretty light.
Probably, and the momentum helps. Anyway, it is definitely an option. There are trade-offs.
While they break this out by model, like the digital edition and the Pro and all of that, this is cool.
Huh.
I didn't realize there were quite so many variants. I guess there are different storage configurations, probably. So yeah, I think the other one is the Shield is the thing we didn't talk about. The Shield is the reason we didn't talk about it is because the hardware is really old at this point. People rave about that's NVIDIA, to be clear, the NVIDIA Shield TV. Like, people absolutely rave about that thing. But yes, the hardware, it's actually a Tegra, roughly equivalent to the one in the Switch 1. Yeah. Just
to tell you how old it is. Like, if they put out a new Shield TV with new hardware in it, I might actually consider getting one, because people seem to like it even better than the Apple TV in a lot of cases.
So there have been rumors, and they had some hirings a couple of weeks ago. So it seems like there might be a new Shield TV coming.
Man, if they put out like a Switch 2 equivalent Shield TV, I might have to.
Yeah. Well,
might have to.
It has really good video quality is the thing. It supports all the the it supports all the Dolby Vision stuff. Everything.
Supporting everything is kind of the thing there.
And it has a decent remote, which is important.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah. All right. Here's an email from Brandon that I certainly found interesting. I just wanted to chime in with some info about some of the courtroom tech you were discussing this week. I manage the recording systems at one of the larger circuit courts in Michigan, and our state actually stopped using stenographers in the courtrooms for the official record around 20 years ago. Everything was moved over to video recordings of the proceedings, starting with VHS recordings, then moved to digital SD recording around the year 2000. And finally into 1080p in the last 5 years or so.
Wow.
All of this was done as a cost-cutting measure. Since the pandemic, a large portion of proceedings are actually held remotely via Zoom, in which case the official record is the Zoom cloud recording. When a written transcript is requested, a certified court reporter or transcriptionist creates that from the video and audio records. Brad's concerns are correct. This does introduce the possibility for technology failures and inaudible moments, but those are more or less seen as acceptable trade-offs. That's crazy to me, because of how seriously the official record was taken in the courtroom I was in. Like, it's crazy to me that there would be any level of acceptable.
Just people half-assing it up in Michigan.
I guess. I can't speak to Michigan's intentions, but AI is being looked at by other states to either produce the entire transcript or to assist in human-assisted transcription. And that's it. We had, like, there were actually quite a few.
Yeah.
Quite a few witnesses testified over Zoom in this case.
Oh, there were. So I was going to say there were a bunch of people that also posted the Discord that they work in these spaces.
Oh, okay.
Sure. We had a lot of feedback and offers for information. So thanks to everybody who wrote in.
Yes, that's cool. But yeah, there were 4 or 5, maybe 6 witnesses over Zoom.
Wow.
In this case.
I mean, it's nice that they didn't have to come downtown.
Yeah.
If only you could have done your jury duty over Zoom.
Yes.
Yes. Did they do that during the pandemic? I guess they did that during the pandemic.
I don't know. I actually have no idea.
Or did they make the jurors come in and sit down and watch Zooms?
That's a good question. I have no idea what they did, actually. Maybe people had to produce negative test results or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Anyway, so it's interesting. There was a good thread about the Open Steno project. I can't remember what it's actually called, but it's the Open Stenography Tool project.
Yeah, Open Steno project was it.
Yeah, and then
on the Discord, you mean?
Yeah, on the Discord, yeah. And there were a couple other people that wrote in as well. I didn't pull all of them, but I thought I wonder if they have different criteria for this. Like if circuit court is, if criminal courts do something different, right? Like, because it would suck to send somebody to jail because the transcription was bad.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, this is mind blowing to me because I cannot count how many times in that courtroom the reporter. Like, it's weird watching a lot of courtroom dramas. Like, you always think of the reporter as somebody who's just sitting there on a little steno machine and never speaks or like is basically invisible. But
yeah.
And not count how many times the reporter had to ask somebody to repeat something or ask them to slow down. Or in a lot of cases, there was a lot of crosstalk where people would like start answering a question before the attorney had finished asking it. And they're like, please, you have to speak one at a time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So like having all of that just baked into the official recording of the trial without any human touch to clarify stuff is like, I don't know.
Yep.
I ain't here to tell how other states to run their legal systems.
Look, at the same time, I look at how the whole process worked. The stuff we talked about a little bit before the show too. It seems phenomenally expensive for like to run a 3-week trial.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Oh yes. Especially when like the case I was on was filed in 2022.
Jesus.
And it's almost 3 years later before it actually went to trial. So like think about the amount of attorneys' time spent working on that over the course of 3 years.
Maybe they should just hire more judges. I could be a judge. I'd be great at it.
That came up actually.
Oh, really?
The judge the judge was excellent in this case. I won't spend too much time on it, but highly professional.
Uh-huh.
There were a couple times though where there were delays for whatever reason, and if it was a delay where he didn't need to be out of the room, like it's very formal in there and like kind of it's all quiet and everything, but like it really might lighten the mood because he went into like he basically went into like welcome to judge facts mode.
Oh, that's fun.
Whenever people were out of the room.
Was there a transition for the judge from like jury selection when they were kind of inimical to you, all the people trying to weasel out of jury duty to like being like friendly judge?
No, this guy was so professional that I would say there was like no change in demeanor. Like he dismissed people for cause even when I kind of felt like they were trying to weasel out of it. But like if you say that you have a bias or that you have read about this case prior or something, they have no choice.
Yeah.
But to excuse you, they can't like try to poke holes in what you're saying. They have to take it on good faith that you're being honest, even if you're not.
Fair. Okay.
And anyway, he went into some judge facts stuff. Like he basically was like, here's how many Superior Court judges are in San Francisco. And like, I was just in LA last Friday for something and they have 10 times as many as we do. Granted, LA, it's a lot bigger.
Yeah.
LA is a little bit bigger than San Francisco, but I think there's like 50 low 50s Superior Court. There's like 52 or 4 Superior Court judges in San Francisco.
Wow, that's a lot. It's a big building.
LA has over 500.
I mean, LA is 10 times the size. Easy.
Yes.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
Anyway. Okay, here's a good question. I don't know that I want to attempt this username. Gerard von... I can't. You want to try it?
Gerard von Nieuwenhuizen.
Okay, sure. It sounds Scandinavian.
I apologize. I'm sorry.
Yes. Can web rings make a comeback in 2026? I mean, why not 2025? I say
this is a thing that Dave Snyder talked about a million times back when we were in the whiskey basement, which is that everything old is always new again. Everything's going to come back. And I think web rings are due.
I hope so. I mean, Wes, our friend Wes Fenlon talked about that on. Yeah. I forget which episode he was on where he brought up the indie web,
the indie web stuff, the fresh RSS one, I think. Yeah.
I think it was the RSS episode. I feel like that's the prerequisite though. Like you need things to form a web ring out of before you can have a web ring. And like, it seems like people are bringing blogs and websites back to a degree.
Blogs are hot, man.
I keep thinking about setting one up that I know I'll never have time to update, but it would be cool to have one.
Well, this is the nice thing about the newsletter is it encourages you to like, people expect a cadence with a newsletter when they don't necessarily a blog.
Yeah. I don't know that I want that kind of responsibility I want to just do it for fun.
I got busy last month and missed some newsletters, and as a result, I felt like I let a bunch of people down.
Yeah,
but
that's exactly it. That's like I really want to do it more as an exercise in networking and hosting than actually running a blog. Like I want to set up the blog and do all of the proxying and web server stuff. Like I'm learning Nginx as right now.
Yeah, I set up a Minecraft server for my daughter and one of her friends last night, and I was like, man, if I had Nginx running, I could just run that from the house and have like a community server for friends.
Yes, so because of course I decided to. I've been meaning to set up a reverse proxy for months, and I finally got around to it, and finally just decided, you know what, I'm just going to go straight Nginx. I'm not going to use any of the GUI front ends or any of the other stuff that integrates. I'm just going to learn plain old Nginx, and hey, it's actually not nearly as complicated as you think.
So I will tell you, I've gone the other way, and I just set up Portainer on my Plex server, the small machine that runs Plex and the heavier stuff. And I installed, oh God, what's it even called? Like a Minecraft server manager that makes it easy. It gives her a web UI that she can log into and like update the server and stuff like that, so that I don't have to do that. I'm a big fan. Let the people do their work instead of having me do the work for the people. I'm teaching people to fish over here.
Yeah, fair. Okay. Tactical Tug. I'm curious, do any of you use some sort of AI assistant regularly? I have Copilot bundled in the Office pack at work, but every time I use it, I realize how shit it is and why I don't use it. ChatGPT is fine for the slightly more creative stuff like writing and so on, but I mostly use it to check math and chemical formulas when I'm too lazy to do it myself. It's better than Copilot in my experience, but still far from perfect. Maybe it's just me, but I generally find this whole AI hype to be a little over the top and that it's mostly useless for things other than just messing around.
Yeah, I don't use it for anything because it's generally shit and is useless for everything other than just messing around.
I have used AI exactly once to generate something actionable that was useful to me.
Okay.
And it was when I wanted to test something on my TV and I asked it to generate an FFmpeg command line to generate a video.
Okay.
Because FFmpeg, if you don't know, has all kinds of like generative, that's the wrong term to use because people are going to think I mean AI. I guess like procedural is a better way to put it.
Yeah, it'll make like bars, NTSC bars and stuff, right?
I think it does. Yes, it does have test patterns built into it, but you can also just tell it to generate like frames of a specific RGB value or whatever.
Okay.
Or like it'll also do a bunch of sound generation stuff, like sine wave type. You can make it produce a bunch of tones or whatever.
Can you make pink noise?
Probably.
Okay.
Anyway, what I had to do was just spit out a like 15-second video of red, green, and blue frames for like 5 seconds each. That was literally it.
Okay.
I wanted a lossless one of those with no compression artifacts. Like I wanted like pure color. I was trying to look at some uniformity stuff on my TV. So like I could have learned to do that myself in 20 minutes, but I decided to just see if I could get it to generate that video for me, and it did. But then I tried it on something a little slightly more complicated with FFmpeg a few weeks later. Could not figure it out no matter what it tried. Like it could not produce anything usable, and those were the 2 times I have ever tried to use AI for anything.
So I've used some stuff. I played that Quake demo, the Quake 2, the stupid Quake 2 game that Microsoft released. I wrote a newsletter about that. I played.
I tried the web embedded version of that too. That was not great.
I played Fortnite and talked to Darth Vader. That was stupid.
Yes, I did that as well.
I've done a lot of local stuff because of work that we do at PC World. So I've done some testing to figure out if there's benchmarks and stuff there. I downloaded DeepSeek and used DeepSeek. I've run a bunch of stuff local. My feeling on the whole thing is that the results aren't good enough to be worth the costs, especially for the cloud-based stuff where like the amount of energy and water being used for those big AI data centers is fairly ludicrous.
Yeah.
And when I talk to normie humans about why I don't like this, I've found coming up with some metaphors that help them understand the environmental cost of running it is, and not to mention the copyright, the theft of training the models, but the environmental cost tends to put a sharp point on things for people, at least here in Northern California. So, the example I use is the thing that you're asking important enough that you'd fill in a few square feet of wetland, or, is your question important enough that you'd chuck a couple of kittens into a wood chipper to get the answer? And people react strongly to that, it turns out.
I think a lot of people do, especially around here, but I think there are people out there that will just shrug and not give a shit at environmental costs.
I mean, that's fine.
I really think the thing to hammer on with people is the reliability aspect of it. It's like, hey, like you are trusting this thing way more than it deserves to be trusted. Like most of the results you're getting out of this thing are not unimpeachable in the way that you seem to think they are.
No, they're absolutely impeachable on almost every axis. The other one I do is the little type ahead bar on your keyboard on your phone. You start the sentence and then just keep hitting the middle word until you get a full sentence out of it.
Any old sentence.
And that's basically what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm always surprised. The interesting thing to me is that there's a huge gap between what people who understand how the AI stuff works, how they feel about it, and how people who are just general computer users and are used to their phones getting better every year and new software doing amazing new things, and they take it at face value and it's absolutely shit.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if we're talking about every use of AI ever, I've used Whisper to transcribe some audio conversations as well. I was sticking more to the more generic,
the LLM
generalized, or assistant is the word that they used in the question, was the agent type thing.
So it was interesting. I did live streams of the Computex keynotes for PC World last week, and the NVIDIA one was like 30 seconds of consumer talk, and then 2 more hours of AI stuff.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Compared to last year, when like every time Jensen would mention something, you get big claps and cheers from the audience. This year he had to like mug for claps, and like wasn't. People, he didn't talk about LLMs at all. They'd switched to agentic stuff, which is the idea that you have multiple small agents doing different tasks for you, and they're all doing the thing that they're good at theoretically. And people just weren't having it because I think a lot of folks feel burned at this point. So yeah, anyway,
understandable. Question from Patch: why do so many motherboards still come with a combo keyboard and mouse PS2 port? Is their use really that widespread in 2025 that the people that do need it can't use a PS2 to USB adapter?
Well, PS2 to USB adapters are all specific to the keyboard you have.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so there's no spec for PS2 to USB.
What?
Yeah, so it's all like the one that comes with one keyboard probably won't work with another unless it's the same vendor.
Is that due to pinout not being the same?
I believe so. I don't. It's like DVI had fallback for VGA built into the spec. So the adapters are universal.
Yeah.
I don't, PS2, I don't actually know about.
I've always heard, I don't know if this is, I think this is true. I've always heard that like they're technically faster, less latency because they're not having to go through USB stack. Like pro gamers like to use PS2 because it's like wired straight to the CPU, right?
Yeah, I think they're hooked into DMA or something, right?
Or something
so it's like really low level access.
Right.
For a long time, PS2 had better end key rollover. Meaning you could hit like all the keys on your keyboard at once and it would work.
Right. I think that's been worked around in USB now, more or less.
Yeah. Modern USB implementations are fine on that front. They are lower latency. They can be, at least. They don't provide as much power, which if you have a lot of lights and nonsense on your keyboard, it doesn't help you at all. So a lot of it's just for backwards compatibility stuff. There's a lot of old, like if you have, some people have need for old machines running ancient OSs that may not support USB.
Yeah. Speaking of motherboards, this is an interesting email. Or sorry, this is a Discord question from Super Blue Owl Jump. My father last year fell for some social engineering of the sinister kind. It was an event that led to the hacker/scammer having full remote access to his computer for at least 40 minutes to an hour.
Oh boy.
Luckily, before real financial harm was done, he had realized he had been duped. Since he had such a serious breach, I told him not to turn the computer back on unless it was not connected to the internet. Luckily, he had everything backed up, but I was worried that since they had such unprecedented access, I wondered how far they could have tainted any of his hardware on top of just his hard drives. I had read that anything could potentially be compromised, so my father decided to build a new machine. Now he has a box of computer parts that I wonder if they're actually salvageable. What do you think? Other than the hard drives, would you think even the motherboard was safe to use? I'm hesitant to build anything with those parts, but I'd hate to throw away parts if they can be used. And that's it. Oh, actually, sorry, there's a PS here. My father was able to save his identity, accounts, and the like over the course of a few weeks. What a pain in the ass.
Yeah, the hard drive is suspect. If you,
yeah, is it?
Well,
I feel like if you deban it or, similar, like secure erase, you're probably fine.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can also like set it up and install it. And connect it to a machine and do a virus scan on it, like run a real virus scanner on it. And,
or
and
if you
clean whatever the problem is.
If you do a low level wipe, I would because if you wipe the media on the drive, you're probably fine unless they were able to somehow compromise the firmware on the drive, which I feel like is probably a pretty big stretch.
That's higher level hacking, probably,
because I'm assuming each one of those exploits would be unique to whatever model of drive or manufacturer you're using, But
at the same time, they're like UEFI and boot exploits and stuff like that they could have put in that could have hit the motherboard. So like, right?
bootloader type exploits would still be on the drive on the storage.
I guess that's
media.
right. Yeah.
Like the only thing. Let's see. I mean, I'm a little out of my depth here, but like, what is on a motherboard that can be compromised?
BIOS.
There's like the UEFI.
Yeah.
There's non-volatile RAM where like a lot of like temporary settings and stuff are stored, like secure boot keys and stuff like that. There's probably something else writable maybe on a motherboard.
There's a whole category of UEFI malware that runs in the firmware.
Like, if you really want to be like the maximally safe here, I guess don't use any of it or don't use it for anything important. But like,
well, I was going to say like the video cards and the memory and stuff like that's totally fine.
Yeah. I would say anything but the motherboard and the drives should be fine, even CPU and stuff like that.
Well, I think you're correct that they can low level format the drives and it'll probably be okay because like realistically they're not going to have firmware malware for hard drives on like a normal phishing job, right?
Right. I mean, like if you really want to talk about like what the plausible threat model is here for the amount of time they had access to it, I'm guessing that like, no offense to your father, but compromising like an elderly person's, I'm assuming they're somewhat elderly, like an older person's computer, like the identity theft aspect is A, the most valuable thing, and B, such low hanging fruit in a case like this that they probably didn't have the time or the inclination to really compromise the hardware is my guess. You know what I mean? Like going after the accounts is where the money is. So that's, I would assume, what they spent their time doing.
Well, and they probably had access for longer than you thought.
That's possible. That is actually, yeah.
Probably they had access and then did active phishing after they like got to that one on the to-do list.
Yeah. I mean, we should probably say we are absolutely not cybersecurity experts. These are our gut feelings. My gut feeling is that outside the motherboard and the drives, everything is absolutely totally fine.
Yeah. And I would, I mean, there's ways to test the drive and to get the stuff off the drive if you want. But if you had backups that were current, I would just trash the drive and then everything else should be fine.
Yeah. I mean, especially if we're talking about like not a bleeding edge expensive machine, it's probably worth it for the peace of mind to just move on.
Yeah. I mean, worst case, you could pop the EEPROM off of the motherboard and put a new BIOS on there, and then you're good to go.
Yep. I have one more hardware question here. RK Harris 62. If you were building a gaming PC around an AMD 9950 X3D and wanted to daily drive Linux on it, what video card would you pick? An AMD 9070 XT? Do NVIDIA cards play well enough with Linux?
So I've been doing desktop Linux with an NVIDIA card for the last couple of weeks now, and it's fine.
Well,
my hunch,
that's distro specific, I think, is what we should say.
It is
my somewhat limited experience, but I've tried NVIDIA on 3 or 4 different distros on something like Cashy OS or Pop OS, where they handle the driver stuff for you. It's totally fine. Like they just handle it. But if you're going to do a component install of Debian or Arch from the ground up from the command line, like you're going to have to do some work to make the NVIDIA card work.
But I mean, that work is often just adding a repository and then pulling down the package and installing the package and running a script.
On Arch, even on Arch, where it worked quite smoothly, I still had to sit there on the wiki and figure out exactly which packages to install. And the Debian install was a giant mess that it wasn't picking up the video driver. Like you have to.
Well, Debian has some specific requirements on the GPL that are going to be incompatible with a lot of the NVIDIA drivers, right?
I mean, there's that. I mean, that's just adding the non-free repositories to Debian to get those things to pick up. The bigger complication there is that there's an open source driver set for NVIDIA on Linux called Nouveau,
Right.
And that's what most of those distros ship by default because they're free and open source. And getting it, this is a lot, and Linux is a lot if stuff is not automated for you. You basically have to like blacklist the Nouveau drivers to get it to pick up the NVIDIA closed source drivers. So like, and Debian was not doing that correctly, and it was a whole thing. Like the bigger picture thing here is that problems can arise. But if you're going to use one of the distros that handles everything for you, I think NVIDIA is perfectly fine. But if the 9070 XT is like roughly the level of performance you're looking for at the price you want to pay, like AMD just works on Linux by and large because its drivers are truly open source, and like you're definitely going to have an easier time. But like if you really want an NVIDIA card, I don't think like using it in Linux should stop you.
Well, I was going to say so pick the distro. It's going to inform your distro choice unless you want to get into the weeds on it. I would advise getting something that handles the NVIDIA drivers for you. Yeah. It also makes doing upgrades, like basically you're tied to when the video card drivers are updated to do kernel updates and stuff like that. Like with the open source AMD drivers, you can just update whenever and it works itself out, is my understanding.
Yeah. I'm curious. A lot of Linux users on the Discord, like I said, Pop OS and Cache OS are the two that come to mind as ones that just handle NVIDIA for you. I'm wondering what other big distros are out there.
Besides handles NVIDIA for you now. Right. A lot of the more user friendly, like user facing stuff like Ubuntu and stuff like that, there are packages that you can install easily that will handle the NVIDIA drivers for you as well. And it may be that you get the Nouveau drivers instead of the blob drivers, but
yeah, like I said, I think most distros are shipping those out of the box, but anyway.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I think the open source drivers are also blob drivers too, right? Because there's still like a package that's not open in there.
That is the case. I'm actually curious what the practical difference is. What like NVIDIA drivers used to be completely closed source on Linux. And like you just said, even when they went open, like the actual core of the drivers is still closed. So I don't know how much that's actually helped things.
Yeah.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's a tiny RISC-V processor on the graphics card that executes that driver blob. If I'm not mistaken,
I think so. Yeah.
That's just a fun fact for you, I suppose.
RISC-V, it's everywhere, man. 2026, the year of RISC-V. That's what we always say.
I think it was last year. Or I think it started already.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely started already.
Bit flipping. What are some good ways to hide sensitive information on your screen when recording videos or streaming? I've thought about making videos of myself as I work on home lab or cloud stuff, but I'm always concerned about making sure I have a good way to redact sensitive items like credentials or certain data elements that could help dox me in the future. I don't know that there is a good live solution for that. I think if you're recording offline to post later, I think your solution is to go back and edit things out.
I mean, the good live solution is to never put anything on the screen that you're going to want to not show everyone. Right. It requires mental discipline. I don't know if that's actually even feasible. Like I've always thought if I were to do something like that, I would probably make a separate like dummy Windows account to sign into to do the streaming on. Well, so I've done that stuff so as somebody who's streamed a fair amount of Windows stuff in the past, it's often having the fake Windows account means that you're not actually getting the stuff that you want for the recordings.
That's the concern, is you may not have access to enough stuff for that to be useful.
Yeah. I one of the things I do, so OBS lets you capture, for example, you can capture individual applications, you can capture desktops, you can capture your entire desktop, right? I am very thoughtful about when I capture the entire desktop, because that will pull in things like notifications and overlays and all of the different weird things that you have on your screen that you maybe don't want people to pop. Like you don't want your Signal notifications popping up on a stream, right? If you capture just your Firefox window or just your terminal window or whatever, then you can do that. The other benefit of doing that is you can have those windows on different displays of capturing the individual windows. And you can do things like have transparency. So like if you're doing a stream that involves CLI work, you can have your terminal window captured separately, have its opacity turned down. So it's just kind of overlaid on top of whatever your normal screen is. And the overlay that your viewers see and what you see are completely different, which can be handy.
Yes. Here's a fun fact about Signal notifications. There's a setting in Signal that lets you remove the body of the message text from your notifications.
Yeah.
That obviously makes the notifications less useful because you can only see who's sending a message, not what they're sending. But you can. I've got that turned on so that. But that's just one. That's just one app. Like that doesn't help globally, of course.
Yeah, and I also don't want people knowing like the notifications, like who I'm getting them from or anything like that. I mean,
obviously, you don't want to capture your notifications regardless, but it's just a fun fact for you. But yes, it's just a fraud. It's just a minefield. Like there's really no good answer. There's no cure all for that.
Well, yeah, and things like having your password manager in your Chrome in your browser and stuff like that means that you're 2 steps away from showing your username and stuff like that. So you just have to be really thoughtful and plan stuff in advance. And I would do some recording before you start trying to live stream.
Yes. I have had this exact same thought of like, I wonder if I should do some videos of home labby. I don't love the word home lab, but you know what I mean? That type of stuff. But it's the exact same thing as this question is asking is the thing that stops me. All right. Annoyed and tired. This is an interesting question. Although this first part has nothing to do with the question. I loved Boston Legal. I wish there was a modern day show which echoed that drama. Maybe The Good Wife, but I haven't watched it.
I don't think I watched a lot of The Good Wife when it was new and it was fine, but not that.
Yeah. All right. I am itching for some more courtroom drama action now.
You should go back and watch Ally McBeal. It's what the kids crave.
Was there a lot of actual court in that show? I've never seen it.
There was a fair amount of court. It was the normal format where there's like a little bit of office drama, and then the Act 2 climax was always in a courtroom.
Yeah, that's fine. You want. I mean, you definitely want some out of court action as well.
I'm trying to think well, the Blacklist is more of a crime thing, I think, than a courtroom thing.
Yeah,
I don't know there's not a lot of courtroom stuff these days. NCIS, I guess maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Like I've seen practically all of Law and Order. I've seen all of Boston Legal.
Brad, we're aging into the Matlock zone now, and I believe that Kathy Bates's Matlock is on.
What?
Yeah, did you not know this?
Wait, Kathy Bates is Matlock now?
So I've been watching. I've been watching some stuff I've been watching Voyager on Paramount Plus because I never watched it before.
Okay.
And boy, man, that has the roughest first season of any Star Trek I've ever seen. I think.
Yep.
But yeah, as a part of this, I get to know about the new stuff coming on CBS, and Kathy Bates is playing Matlock starting last September.
Wow. I kind of like the idea that Matlock is like a James Bond sort of, it's like more of a role than a name. Like whoever, like 20 years from now will be on the 5th Matlock. Yeah. It'll be somebody total. It's like a Doctor Who situation.
Hold on. The premise is wealthy retired lawyer Madeline Kingston returns to practice seeking justice for the death of her daughter Ellie in the opioid epidemic. Kingston gets a job using the alias of needy widow Maddie Matlock at the law firm she believes hid evidence that she could have saved her daughter's life. To gain the firm's trust, she must first apply her intellect to helping her colleagues with other challenging cases. This is pretty good.
Yeah, I might have to check that out. It was really fun it was like one of the probably maybe the most valuable like educational thing about this experience was comparing all of my preconceptions about how court works from watching so much courtroom drama to how it actually works. That was a fun. I like
that the first thing they say when they sit you down in the jury, every time I've been in for jury selection, they're like, this is nothing like what you see on TV.
Interesting. We didn't get that, but I wouldn't say I would say it's mostly not like what you see on TV. There were a few dramatic moments, but
oh my God, Brad. Within the universe of the series, the original Matlock series aired as it did in the real world, and Ellie's love of the series inspires Madeline's alias.
What? That's incredible.
That's very good.
Huh. All right.
They call her Maddie.
That's pretty good. Okay. All right. Here is Annoyed and Tired's actual question.
Okay.
My question surrounds resolution. Mythbusters is available on Max, and it's gotten me thinking. At what point do you think the resolution becomes a detriment and takes away from your experience of whatever media you're considering? I think it's 720p.
I think that pre 1080p stuff is hard to watch on a 4K set.
I mostly agree with you, but I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago. I watched all of the last season of The Practice, speaking of courtroom dramas.
Yeah.
A few months ago.
Uh-huh.
And that only ever came out on DVD. That's 480p. And it doesn't look great. I have a 4K TV. It does not look great, but also you kind of stop, or at least, that show I think was shot on film. Like it looks good other than being low resolution. So like, I kind of just stopped noticing it after 20 minutes.
I think animation probably does better in a lot of cases.
Sure.
Like old, especially like hand-drawn line art animation scales up pretty nicely, even with shitty scalers. I also think this is variable based on how good the scaler in your TV is.
That's probably part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
I don't know. Like my intellectual answer to this is 1080p. Like I don't want lower than 1080p. But again, after that experience of watching the practice, like in practice, I don't think it actually matters as much as my brain tells me that it does. But I agree. Like if it's 720p, you're going to notice like something would still be watchable, but not great.
I also like, I mean, I think to your point, I think I don't care as much if the, like based on the content, right?
Yeah.
Like what I'm watching matters here.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if it's a movie that you're like, I don't know. I'm not quite sure how to put this. Like if it's a movie that you're really interested in or that you really want to take seriously, you want to watch it in the best quality possible. But if it's some old TV show or whatever, then like whatever is fine.
Like when we watched Pirates of Silicon Valley, my copy of that was ripped off of TV, I think off of a TiVo, and it was 480p and it was fine. It didn't impact that. That
never came out above DVD, I don't believe. And like that was watchable. Although I believe that was shot on film. They should put out a 4K version of Pirates of Silicon Valley.
I watch old Muppet shows. They're 480. They're off DVD rips. I have a buttload of now that Looney Tunes is off of Max. I've been digging out the old Blu-rays and I have a bunch of DVDs that I ripped of Looney Tunes shorts, and they all look fine. So yeah, maybe it's fine.
Yeah. All right. I think this is going to be our last one because it's a very long one.
Okay.
Going back to the emails here. I'm not quite sure how to approach this because there are about a dozen questions in this email. Maybe I'll just read the whole thing and then we'll try to address.
Is this the duck one?
Holistically, it's the duck one.
I didn't think we were going to do this. Nobody highlighted it.
Yeah, but it's too good not to.
Like it's very ducky.
There are too many different angles to approach this from.
It's got some strong Tony Soprano vibes here.
Dave in Sheffield. I assume the one in the UK.
I would assume.
But I don't know for sure.
Do they have ducks in the UK? I thought it was more of a swan place.
I don't know. I guess we're about to find out.
Yeah.
I'm in the fortunate position that finally in my 40s I can buy a house. A big criterion was proximity to some ducks and geese that we feed with veggie scraps.
I love this.
An interesting item on your wish list, but okay. But we were even more fortunate to find a house with a river at the bottom of the garden, which makes duck feeding a lot easier. I'm planning on setting up a live stream of the river and its wildlife and wondered if you have opinions on the following or learnings from Will's bird stream. Okay, I already have a power over Ethernet CCTV cameras with night modes, so the plan would be to set up OBS scenes from the different cameras and use a script to switch them every 10 minutes. I ran outdoor cable through my last garden, but only to one camera. This time, do I have the PoE switch indoors and run multiple long Ethernet cables through the garden? Or do I run one Ethernet and one mains cable through to a shed further down the garden and have the switch in there with shorter runs to the cameras? I'd like a microphone, but actual outdoor mics are expensive. Can I 3D print an enclosure that would keep a power over Ethernet Raspberry Pi Zero and microphone protected enough from the elements and generate an RTMP audio stream onto the network to add into the scenes? I feel like syncing the video and audio from that might be tough, but anyway, I'll finish the email first. I have a spare Haswell laptop, but I'm not confident that even with QuickSync, it can handle OBS. I could put a spare 1060 in my NAS powered by a Ryzen 5600 and run it from that, but would rather not be running OBS directly on it. Does OBS work okay in a VM? The host is Debian, so I guess that would be KVM. Or do I just pick up a secondhand M1 Mac Mini? Lastly, what do you think the chances are that with something like there's a lot in this email.
Yeah.
Lastly, what do you think the chances are that with something like Ko-fi or do people pronounce
coffee?
It coffee?
Is how, because it's like you give people a cup of coffee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something like coffee, I may be able to have a trickle of income from it to pay for duck food, equipment upgrades, and maybe even a small contribution towards the mortgage.
Oh, I love this. This is some clutch side hustle here from Dave.
It would be trivial to add a ticker that thanks the contributors. The dream, I guess, is that people start naming the regular ducks and then I can make merch and completely cover the mortgage. But realistically, I'm not expecting this to be more than something fun for me to tinker around with. I think it's good to have measured expectations and then see where it goes.
Yeah, fun to tinker around with is a good goal here. I think covering the mortgage is probably not realistic.
Do this for the fun of it first. Although, like, have I talked about the otters on this podcast? I know I've brought them up on Nextlander.
Are you talking about the Pacific, the aquarium otters?
These are domestic otters in Japan.
Oh,
apparently Japan has like very narrow laws that in some circumstances it's legal to own otters as pets.
Wow. They ought to close those loopholes.
They should. There is a pair of otters that are huge on YouTube, and they do sell merch around those otters. And I actually wonder if, in fact, those otters are paying for their owner's mortgages. Okay, in that case,
I will tell you, I follow some chinchillas on YouTube. I follow Marine Mammal Rescue, which has an otter cam, 24/7 otter cam on Twitch.
Okay.
I follow some guinea pigs. There's a guinea pig farmer that has just like an enormous herd of like 100 guinea pigs that all live in this. Brad, they have a barn, and it's like one of those sheds you put in your backyard, and it has shelves on the side. And when they open the door to the shed in the morning, there's just like 100 guinea pigs at the edge of the sheds, looking at them and being like, "Hey man, where's my lettuce and broccoli?"
Great, that's great. I do have to jump in here. I'm not absolutely not accusing anyone of anything here, but like the whole idea of monetizing animals does make me feel a little bit icky because, again, not accusing anyone specifically, but it feels like the kind of thing where if there were a lot of money in it, you would immediately, in fact, this probably already happens, like you would have people getting the animals in order to make money from them, not because they want to care for the animals. Like, you know what I mean?
The ones that I like of this are ones that are clearly like we have a farm where we have animals and stuff. And like,
like it's like, hey, we already had the animals because we love the animals, which is the right reason to have the animals. And we decided to put a camera on them, but like it's almost like the showbiz kid sort of problem, you know?
Well, it's interesting because like the woman who has the chinchillas does some terrible videos, but the chinchillas are fun. And like she does a lot of like chinchilla advocacy in the line of, hey, these are difficult pets. Like she makes it very clear, like every fifth video or something is like, these are difficult pets. You shouldn't get these if you don't know what you're doing. Like you have to keep the house at 60 degrees or else they die.
Wow,
because they're from the Andes, so they're insulated for cold.
Yes, I knew about the chinchilla's like dust bathing thing, which is its own whole can of worms.
Yeah, I feel like there's a positive, there's a way to do this and have it be okay.
Again, like I said, I'm not nobody involved here. I'm not again like talking about anybody involved in this or anybody that we know or anything like that. It's just I have absolutely less than zero tolerance for people who mistreat animals for profit.
Oh yeah, no doubt,
that kind of thing. So,
but so in the example here, the duck cam, I think is
oh yes, this is absolutely 100% fine,
totally kosher.
This is like a thing that I have not observed directly here. It's just something that occurs to me anyway.
Well, so the PoE CCTV sealed weatherproof cameras are good. One of the things I didn't know is that every time you open those, pretty much like they're usually packed with silica gel to keep condensation from forming inside the sealed housings. And that silica gel has a lifetime. So like, especially if you leave it open for a while, it'll suck moisture from the air and you have to then like replace those silica gel packets, which you can get Amazon or hardware stores or whatever.
Sure. I'll mention real quick, since I guess we're going to go through this line by line here, but he mentions having OBS switch scenes on a timer every 10 minutes. One thing I've actually wondered about, I never had any actual interest in doing a guinea pig cam, but people would ask for it often enough that I kind of thought through what it would take to set it up. When they would ask, I always wondered if there were a way, and you probably need a plugin for this or like have to build it yourself, if there were a way to use some kind of motion detection or even like image recognition to have it switch scenes based on what's happening on each feed. So and like track the motion, like whichever one's got the most motion going on, or even like at this point you could probably use some computer vision to like recognize basic animal shapes and try to maybe automate having it focus on whatever is the most interesting.
So yeah, there's a tool called Advanced Scene Switcher. It's a stock OBS plugin that ships with OBS.
Oh.
And you can build macros with that can fire from any number of other things.
Oh.
You may or may not. So there's two things I was going to say. One is having it switch randomly is going to make people crazy. or on a timer because like people will get upset because they'll be watching something and then the timer will switch and then they'll lose it for 10 minutes.
Yep.
What I would do is maybe set up you can do hotkeys on this scene switcher thing. So then you can run a bot on your Twitch or YouTube channel that watches for bot commands and triggers those hotkeys on the computer.
Oh yeah.
So you can put that on hands of mods or let people vote, or you can, once you have it in a bot, you can do all sorts of weird scripting stuff with it that makes a lot of things easy. You could, like I said, you can do timers. You can do scenes that are like quads. You could do a scene that's a quad that you let people switch into one of the blow ups and then times back after like 10 minutes. And then when people do it again, like there's all sorts of ways you can do that. I don't think they have machine vision stuff in here, but I also think it would be fairly easy to have a machine vision thing, like to pipe these streams out to a machine vision thing and then trigger hotkeys that trigger your scene switcher stuff.
Yeah.
So that's one of them. I just did one cam on the bird cams that I had up on my front yard.
Yeah. Well, of course, I mean, the nest is such a small area to cover that one is probably plenty there.
Yeah. And there wasn't room to put a second camera in. There's a person that does, it's funny. There's a person that posts things on TikTok down in Moss Beach, which is like the next town south of down the coast from me. And they have a backyard that butts up against like the protected wildlife, the protected forest. And they just sit in their backyard at 7 o'clock in the morning until like 9 o'clock in the morning with their phone. And like drinking coffee and watching animals and like,
that sounds pretty good.
Like this morning, they posted a thing with a whole family of skunks that just tromped into their backyard. Like,
okay.
Like they're sitting there in the chair, they're chittering around, they're walking up underneath them and moving around and all this. And then they're like, okay, well, as long as they don't make any noise, they're cool.
All right.
And the skunks just walked off. They see coyotes and all sorts of stuff. So you could also start this manually with you just sitting there with your phone where you can see the ducks and see if there's interest.
Yeah.
The outdoor cable, doing the outdoor cable, you like the best practice is to put it into like a plastic conduit and put that up 6 inches under the ground, just trench it in with a trenching shovel.
Yeah.
But you can also just run the wire if you don't care about it. It won't last as long, but that's probably fine for this.
Yeah. I get the annoyance with having to run a bunch of long cables through the yard, but like putting a switch in a shed immediately. I mean, I guess it depends on the type, how environment proof the shed is, but putting like expensive electronics, because you're talking about a PoE switch there.
It's $100 probably.
Putting a nice switch out in a shed is maybe a little sketchy to me. So I might lean toward multiple long runs to the cameras from the house. I don't know.
So I bet you can buy PoE switch enclosures.
Yeah, probably.
Also,
yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, Altalex has them that are weatherproof specifically for this purpose. So, I would do this. I would do one run in the switch because it's a pain in I don't know if you've run 100 feet of cable before out in the yard, but
no,
it's a lot of trenching.
Yeah, like it's definitely cleaner to just run one out to a switch.
And when I say trenching for this, I'm talking about literally like stomping down on your shovel, wedging out a wedge of dirt and like putting the cable in the bottom of that slit that you make and then just pushing it back down with your foot over on top of it.
Would you ever put just bare Cat 6 in the dirt like that? I mean, I know you said a conduit is ideal or preferable, but is that an option? I wonder how resilient that is.
So we did bare Cat 6 at my parents' farm, or it was probably Cat 5 at the time in like 2000, and it was still there when they sold the place 3 years ago and working.
Still functional.
Yeah, so they used it for the barn cams so that when they had a mare that was foaling, they didn't have to get up and walk over to the barn every hour.
Oh, sure.
And yeah, it worked fine.
That's cool.
The infrared. So one thing I found is that the dome cameras that have the infrared lights inside the dome are much, much more susceptible to the glass getting dirty and you not being able to see anything than the ones that have the infrared lights outside the dome. So that's a thing to think about. And like a big infrared flood will illuminate stuff at night much better than the little lights inside the dome cameras. The dome cameras are good out to like 15 or 20 feet, and a big flood will go 40 if you set it up right in a way that you don't see.
Cool. This external microphone question, like I said earlier, I'm guessing if you're sending a separate audio stream over the network, you're going to run into too many sync problems between a video feed and an audio feed.
It might not matter though.
You think?
For wildlife stuff.
Yeah, look, you want those quacks to be accurate.
That's
you want
true.
Them to be, you want accurate quacks. You want quaccurate.
Quack. Look, without Quackuracy, where are we?
If you don't have Quackuracy, then what are we doing?
Like, if you're not doing Quackuracy, you could just set up a 5090 and generate this video with some video generation tool.
Yes,
and then you don't even have to have real ducks.
Huh? That's right. Oh God, that's grim. Jesus.
The Haswell laptop is not going to do what you want.
You don't think so?
It won't do 4 streams.
Oh yeah, maybe not. I looked it up. The Haswell. Haswell was the second generation of CPU of QuickSync to support H.264. So yeah, I don't know. If
Haswell was before Broadwell, right?
Well, yes, Broadwell came after Haswell.
Yeah, so it's not going to work. I've used Broadwell for the problem isn't the QuickSync encoding. The problem is the compositing on the GPU. The GPU won't do the compositing of the four camera feeds.
I wondered if that would be an issue.
I think your instinct with the Mac Mini is probably good. I don't know what the Mac M1 OBS support is like. The other option is to buy like $100 B-Link 10th gen Intel box, and that'll be great.
That might be what I would do. I don't know what a used M1 Mac Mini costs. I have not loved OBS on Mac OS the few times that I've used it. It always feels a little bit jankier than the Windows version, although maybe that's unfair.
It had problems early on. I don't have an M1 Mac, so I don't really know. I don't have an excuse to use it.
It's been a long time since I've used OBS on a Mac. I will say, I believe OBS has built-in support for the video acceleration, like kind of the QuickSync equivalent on Apple chips. I'm pretty sure that, like, as far as hardware encode and decode goes, you'd be fine. But yeah, I'm with you. I think probably one of the, like, honestly, like probably an N100 based little Intel box would probably be enough for this, but you could definitely get something slightly nicer for not a ton of money.
Yeah, like under $500, you can get something that's rad. And if you're willing to buy used, those old Think Centers and stuff like that are like 9th and 10th and 12th gen in. Like, I think 10th gen is the cutoff on Linux because they're going to stop supporting the QuickSync extensions for 10th gen next year, I think, in the kernel. That just means you're going to stay on the LTS version of whatever version of Linux you're using for your OBS server.
I don't know that I'm trying to find an M1 Mac Mini on Apple's refurb site, and I don't know that they sell them. It's mostly M4s, which are the current models. What are they doing, Apple? What are you doing, Apple?
I mean, M1's pretty old at this point.
That's
3 years, 4 years?
Almost 4 years.
Yeah, that's old by Apple standards.
M5 is coming out later this year.
So the other thing I was going to say is that you can run OBS in a VM. It's complicated because you have to connect hardware. If you're just capturing HTTP, if RTMP streams from security cameras, you're probably fine.
Yeah. Actually, maybe if you already have the 1060 and you don't want to spend more money on hardware, you could try throwing it in there. That's doable.
That's true. But if your NAS doesn't have a way to do a desktop, your OBS is going to be weird because you have to run command line OBS, and that's a challenge.
Wait, is that a thing?
Yeah, you can run command line OBS.
Are you sure?
Thought so.
I mean, you could use FFmpeg for that matter. Like, frankly,
true.
If we want to talk about processing audio and video streams purely from the command line, FFmpeg is all you need for that. I can tell you that from experience.
I'm wrong. OBS CLI is just a command line interface, so you can control it from the command line.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
But you could remote into, like, with some kind of VNC equivalent into a VM.
That's true. You could. Well, yeah, but then you're not going to have the problem. The problem is going to be you need a real GPU to do the compositing of the video, so you'll be limited to one video stream at a time.
Is it 1060 not enough for that?
I don't think without the desktop environment. Oh, I mean, yeah, you pipe the 1060 through to the VM.
Yeah, you'd pass that through.
Okay,
that might be worth looking at. But also, if you want an easier solution, just buy a cheap x86 box with QuickSync, and you're totally golden.
And then on the monetization front, I think you'll see some, like, I saw actually surprisingly good ad revenue on Twitch for the bird streams.
Bird cam.
Just because like 30 people were watching it around the clock pretty much.
Sure.
The thing I'll say is the ad revenue is not very much. Like, I saw a 30x boost and it was like, it didn't pay for the machine that was running the camera or the camera. The thing you could do is set up, once you have that bot running, you need a little robot that'll chuck some duck food into the pond every time somebody puts $5 in the kitty.
Now you're talking.
And then Then you're going to you let people pay to see the hot duck action. There you go. Get a fake robot lady duck that goes out there and like the ducks all get excited about.
I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with the direction this is going in.
I'm just saying you need to kick this off, launch only ducks, and then see what happens next.
All right. Thanks for writing in.
Only geese. Is that better? Only fowl. FOWL. Yeah. Only fowls. Anyway, I guess that'll do it for us this week. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for supporting the show. We appreciate you. I'm glad, Brad, that your long national nightmare is now over.
Yeah. I mean, look, I am happy to have participated in the process. You know, it's nice to have seen the system working. I have to say that, like, with some exceptions, it was nice to see. I'll say the judge and one set of attorneys were all highly professional.
Ooh. Did you,
the other side, I don't know.
Did you trade info with any of the jurors? Are you going to stay in touch?
We went out and got a beer afterwards.
Nice. Nice.
I was just, we got done. It was about 4:00 on a Friday. And I was like, I'm done. I'm out. I'm going home. I rocketed out the door. But then most of the jury was congregating on the front steps. And it was clear everybody really needed to decompress.
I can see that.
Because you're not allowed to discuss the case with the other jurors at all. I don't know if people don't know, you kind of have to just sit there and say nothing for the duration of the trial. And it had kind of a dramatic enough finish, I guess I would say, that everybody was just like, oh, we all need to go compare notes now.
When they selected you for the jury, they knew that your job is to talk into a microphone, right?
Yes, I made that clear.
Yeah, okay.
You have to list your profession. I mean,
I know.
They go through a whole vetting process. And to be clear, we had deliberated, but all three alternates were there, but who I felt bad for because they never got the closure of getting to deliberate and weigh in on the thing.
Did they agree with you all? Did you do an informal survey of them afterwards?
They definitely agreed.
Okay, that's good.
But I think they really wanted to talk everything over because they had not gotten to do that. So,
did they not get to go into the deliberation room?
No. Alternates, as soon as deliberations start, alternates basically go home and wait by the phone in case they have to be called in.
Wow. So they missed the deliberations if somebody gets kicked out of the jury at the last minute. But presumably they're done. They're good at that point.
Yes. Once the verdict is in, they never have to come back in again.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, anyway, so we should be back to a more regular scheduled. It might take us a week or two to get up and running. Yeah. But I think we have some guests queued up, some exciting stuff for the next few weeks.
Yes.
In the meantime, if you would like to find out how to support the show, which is a listener supported show, that means we would not be here without you, the listeners. We don't take ads. We don't do anything else to make money for the show. So, if you would like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/techpod, where for $5 a month, you get access to the Discord. You get access to our monthly patron episodes where we sometimes take more. It was really hard picking the crop of questions this month. We didn't get through half of the ones we had flagged, I don't think. So we'll probably do some more questions this month. But often we talk about ongoing projects and stuff like that. The kind of stuff we've talked about in the last few weeks while you've been tied up with jury stuff.
Yes.
And you can go to patreon.com/techpod and sign up for that. It's the end of the month, which means we thank both our executive producer and associate producer tier patrons. I'm going to start with the executive producers, including Andrew Slosky, Bunny Meme, David Allen, James Kamek, Jason Lee, Jordan Lippett, Pantheon, makers of the HS3 high-speed 3D printer, and Twinkle Twinkie. And then I'm going to move over to the associate producer tier and thank Alejandro Navarro, Andre M. Burke, PE, Andrew Dicey Shouldice, Andrew Dicey Shouldice. Changed the label so it's not phonetical anymore.
It's getting sneaky.
I know. Arthur Geese, Ben Tallman, Brutal Kerfuffle, Eric, Felix Kramer, Graham Banks, Jad Rita, Just Associate Wedge, Kerp, Matt Walker, Walkman 8080, Mike Etheridge, Nathan Phelps, P. Tibbs, Sanchit Kumar, Steve Lynn, Thomas Shea, Tom Fuller, Tom Hilton, and Xbox Playdates. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And I guess that'll do it for us this week.
I believe it will.
I think I'm going to go find a torta. I had a dream last night about a sandwich that I had last year at a party.
Man, that's a powerful dream that leads you to go get the thing you dreamed about.
I mean, dude, it was maybe one of the all-time best sandwiches I've ever had. Man. We can talk about it on the Patreon episode.
Now I want one.
Yeah. But we'll be back next week. As always, please consider the environment before printing this podcast.